Good morning student. In our previous period we completed up to working with language. In that we completed question 2. Okay. So now moving on further in the same page 31, third exercise is given. Study the sentences in the columns A and B. Now see, in your textbook 2 columns are given in page 31. In this page 3 question, in 3 question that 2 columns are given, column A and column B. So now what we have to do, we have to firstly read out the sentences that given. So first I am reading out the sentences, you people just pay attention in your book. Firstly, column A, Meghna was swept away. Alam's grandfather was hit on the head. 60 visitors were washed away. No animals' carcasses were found. Okay. Now in column B, the waves swept Meghna away. Something hit Alam's grandfather on the head. The waves washed away 60 visitors. People did not find any animal carcasses. Okay, so now compare the sentences in A to the ones in B. So what we have to do, we have to compare the sentences in column A to the ones in B. Who is the doer? Doer of the action in every case. Doer, that who is doing that action in every case. Is the doer mentioned in A or in B? So now in which column doer is mentioned? In column A it is mentioned or in column B it is mentioned. Notice the verbs in A. So in column A, if we notice verbs that we know, action words, okay. So if we notice in column A, then was swept away, was hit, were washed away, were found. Such words are there, verbs are there, okay. They are in the passive form. They are in which form? Passive form. The sentences are in the passive voice. In these sentences, the focus is not on the person who does the action. So if we read it, whatever the sentence is given in column A, so from that what we comes to know that in all the sentences focus is not on the person who do the action. Yes or no? The sentences are in the passive voice. In these sentences, the focus is not on the person who does the action. In B, the doer of the action is named. So in B column, we see that the doer of the action is named, like the waves swept Meghna away. Yes. So the verbs are in the active form, the sentences are in the active voice. So column B, that verbs are in the active voice, active form, sentences are in active voice. Column A, it's given in a passive form. Yes, passive voice, that the sentences are in the passive voice. In these sentences, the focus is not on the person who does the action. So when the focus is not on the person who performed that action, when it is not focus that thing, focus on that person, so that sentences are in passive voice. And in B column, the doer of the action is named. So whosoever is perform that action, the doer is named there. The verbs are in the active form. The sentences are in the active voice. So in column B, verbs are in which form? Active form, and the sentences are in the active voice. Now say whether the following action is named. The verbs are in the active form. The sentence say whether the following sentences are in the active or the passive voice. Now some sentences are given and we have to identify that whether the given sentences are in the active or the passive voice. Write A or P after each sentence as shown in the first sentence, and we have to just write down A for the active voice, P for the passive voice as the space is given after the sentence. Okay, and about active and passive voice, you people already learned in your previous class also about active voice and the passive voice. So we are familiar with active voice and the passive voice. Okay, so now you people start writing. So in our notebook we first write down the question. So be ready and start writing with me. So in page 31 in our textbook, 3, study the sentences. Study the sentences in the columns A and B and B. Now 2 columns given, so we write down this. Okay, so first we write down column A, all the sentences given. Meghna was swept away. Then after 2, Alma's grandfather was hit on the head. 3, 60 visitors were washed away. No animal cases were found. Okay, this is the column A. Now we are going to write down column B. We are writing this column A and B because the question is based on the given column, means we have to study the sentences. So for that we are writing, so note it down. Then after column B, now write down column B. In this one, the waves swept Meghna away. Then after something hit almas grandfather on the head. Third one, the waves washed away 60 visitors and people did not find any animal. People did not find any animal carcasses. Okay. So now, as in the next page, explanation of both the column is given, that in column A, verbs, that is action, like was swept away, was hit, were washed away, were found, they are in the passive form. The sentences are in the passive voice. In these sentences, the focus is not on the person who does the action. Why they are in the passive form? Because in these sentences, whatever the sentence is given in a column A, in that focus is not on the doer, whosoever is perform that action. Focus is not on that. So that's why it's a passive voice. In B, the doer of the action is named. In the B, we see the waves swept Meghna away. Yes or no? So, the verbs in the active form, the sentences are in the active voice. Okay. So, we write down this two paragraph about column A and B. Write down so notice the verbs. Notice the verbs. We are not writing that line which is given above this sentence. Compare the sentences in A to ones in a B. That sentences, that line we are not going to write. We start from notice. Okay. So, notice the verbs in A. So, when we notice the verbs whatever given in column A, like was swept away, these are the verb, these are the action which was performed by the doer in the given sentences. Hit or were washed away or were found. So they are in the which form? Passive forms. They are in the passive form. the sentences are in the passive. The sentences are in the passive voice. In these sentences, the focus is not on the person who does the action. And why they are passive voice, why they are in passive form? Because in the given sentences the focus is not on the person who does the action. So whosoever is performed action, focus is not on the person. Is that clear? So the sentences are in the passive voice. Now we are talking about column B. So write down that in B, so it's clear that when the focus is not on the doer of the action, then it is which form? Active voice or a passive voice? It's a passive voice. So in B, the doer is a person who does the action. Doer of the action is named. The verbs are action words which express an action. Verbs are in the active forms. In the active form, the sentences are in the active voice. So when active voice, the doer of the action is named, or I can say means the focus on the doer of the action. So that is active form, that shows active form, and such sentences are in the active voice. So for our knowledge, that we are not confused about this question, if we started from say whether the following sentences directly from that blanks, then might be confused. So that is why we have written such thing for our knowledge. Okay. So now on this, based off this question, whatever the explanation is given, now one question is based on this. So that's why we have written this, that we can understand properly. Okay. So now in this, say whether the following the following sentences are in the active or the passive voice. Write A or P. So A stands for active voice and P stands for passive voice. So we have to write down A or P after each sentence. After each sentence we have to write down A or P, identify that whether it is a active or a passive, and accordingly we have to write down in the first sentence. So see, one sentence is given and in that A is there written. It's A, that is the active voice. Okay. So someone stole my bicycle. So it's active voice. Then after 2, the tires were deflated. The tires were deflated by the traffic police. Okay, so in this it is passive voice. Then after 3, I found it last night. I found it last night in a ditch. Ditch means a narrow canal dug on the side of the road or the field. That is a ditch. We have seen a ditch near my house. It's a active voice. What is ditch? Ditch, that is a narrow canal. We can see the road in this way and the narrow canal from both the two sides of the road, from where the water falls. Yes, that is a ditch. So someone stole my business. This example is given, answer also given. It's in the active voice. Yes, the tires were deflated by the traffic police. Passive voice, I found it last night in a ditch near my house. Active voice. Then after it had it had been thrown, there. So it's a passive form, passive voice. Then my father gave it to the mechanic, active voice, the mechanic repaired it for me. It's active voice. So in this exercise we learn about the active voice and the passive voice. Active voice and passive voice, from both the thing we are familiar, and we learn about both this word that in our previous classes also. Yes, in grammar also we learn about active voice and passive voice. Okay, so now moving on further, speaking and writing is given in our textbook in the same page. So now I am reading and you people just pay attention in your textbook. So speaking and writing, in that first one is given, suppose you are one of the volunteers who went to Andaman and Nicobar Island for relief work after the tsunami. So as in our chapter we seen and we read it about the tsunami hit. Okay, so how they hit the Andaman and Nicobar Island. So for the relief work after this tsunami, you work in the relief camps distributing food, water, medicine among the victim. And what we have to do in this relief camp, we have to give distributing food, water, medicine among the victims, those people who are affected by this natural disaster. So you listen to the various stories of bravery of ordinary people, even as they fight against odds to bring about some semblance of normalcy. Semblance, that means the things which are not seen in reality, means the things which are different and it seems look like a different. Okay, and we have to means tackle that situation, we have to do something to that things comes in a normal way. In their lives you admire their grit and determination. Write a diary entry, and we have to write down in a diary about their bravery, that how they fight with that difficult situation, whatever they face at that time when the tsunami hit. And in this chapter also we learn about, or we read it about, so many people who face that situation, that natural disaster. Yes, and how they tackle that situation with the bravery. We have to write down a diary and we have to note it down in that, and we have to means write down about that person, about their grit and determination. Okay, so student, in this chapter I stop here. Now further we will continue with this in our next period. So whatever we just now completed, just go through with it. Thank you. Goodbye.